You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day, or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. Hopefully, everyone has had a wonderful long weekend. It's Monday now. Hopefully, that everyone is going to have a fantastic day off. Of course, it is Terry Fox Day here in Manitoba, a legend himself. The things he did back then when he did his run for cancer, just absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, hopefully everyone is having a wonderful Monday morning. For everyone tuning into this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba, I want to thank you. It should be a good show. We're going to have two guests on today's episode. First off, Harry Siemens on the Farm Report will be joining us. Of course, that segment brought to you by Wolf Enterprises. And then after that, we're going to be hearing from Pilot Mound Hockey Academy's goalie coach, Gordie Tumilson, just giving us the updates of what's been going on with the academy during the summer months and stuff like that. And then we're going to dive into Graham's opinion to finish off the show. But without further ado, let's run the intro of today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Harry Siemens will be joining me after the intro, and you already know what to do, Manitoba. It's time to rise and shine here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. We're going to start off today's show with a great guest, of course, Harry Siemens, joining us now on the Farm Report, brought to you by Wolf Enterprises. And the man himself in right now, it's Harry Siemens. Harry,
Hey,
how you doing on this Monday morning? We talked before we went on air, and you said that long weekends and stuff like that haven't really made a difference to you in your lifetime because you're always keeping yourself busy during these long weekend stuff like that. But yeah, how's your long weekend been this year for you, Harry?
you know what? It's been absolutely great. We started with the birthday party on Purdy. I took my 5-year-old granddaughter out for lunch on Friday for her birthday. Saturday, it was a birthday for her and for my daughter. And today is the actual day of my daughter, Laurel. And I wish her a happy birthday. And I have another daughter in BC. Both our daughters were adopted. And so the daughter in BC, yesterday was her adoption day birthday. so it was quite a day. And just one other comment: weekends for us. My wife was a nurse, so ours really didn't matter unless we would book time off and take that weekend off. And I was a radio guy for many years, and also worked in the church, and so often I was working Sunday morning. So weekends, I'm not complaining. It's just the way they are. I love life, and I'll take it as it comes.
Yeah, well, it's great that you're able to celebrate some stuff this weekend for sure, and yeah, with just the long weekends and stuff. I know that you're always a busy guy, so it's great that you've had a chance to enjoy it this year. But just talking about what has happened in the last week since the last time we've talked, in terms of just the stories that we've been covering here on the Farm Report. Just what have been the latest developments, or the stuff that stayed the same during the last week?
Well, of course, we haven't had any rain except maybe a few small areas. So the drought becomes more serious all the time. We've taken crop off. Some harvesting has been done. In fact, I was on CGOB with Clay Young on Saturday morning, and he gets a text from a farmer at St. Andrews. And that farmer told him, "I'm done farming. I'm done combining. The harvest is over," and harvests very seldom start in July. His harvest is over in July this year. Why? Because there was so little to harvest. And so we've got that continuing. We have the hog situation. We had some pretty scary news relating to hogs and disease. African swine fever is a deadly disease for hogs. It has nothing to do with people, but China has it. Different countries have it. Now the Dominican Republic and Haiti reported last week that they too had the African swine fever. That's getting pretty close to North America. I mean, that's pretty close to US and Canada. If we get one hog with African swine fever in Manitoba, they would shut the entire country down. They would shut the hog industry down until we had that particular disease eradicated, and it wasn't anywhere else. So that's something to watch. It's not something that we need to be too concerned about as far as the human aspect is concerned, except that it would give us a shortage of pork if that should happen. Heaven forbid. We're hoping that we're going to keep our biosecurity up in all the hog barns in Canada. We don't want people flying in from Haiti and Dominican Republic with hog sandwiches. The airports and the dogs are even more stricter when it comes to those kinds of things, because we don't want to put a $25 billion industry in Canada on hold because somebody carelessly brought in an infected hog sandwich from one of those countries. So that's kind of the aspect we're watching. Markets, the prices for crops are just through the roof. And the more drought we have and the drier it becomes in the United States, the higher these markets seem to go. And that's another thing. The drought, an agronomist, Jennifer Sabarin from St. Jean, her and her husband run Antera Agronomy, and she had a picture on Facebook or Twitter where she had a yardstick, and it was 32 inches down a crack in a field that's supposed to grow a crop. That's how dry it is. 32 inches down in a crack in the ground that should not have a crack. And that's because there's just no moisture. So that's an issue. I was up at the Lake Minnewaska. That's the Morden Lake where they get their water. They've got 33, 34 weeks of water left for their entire city, and I was at the dam and in the lake where we used to always swim. I mean, the lake is like shrunk, and the dam is way above water. And so that's an issue. But you know what? There are some areas of Western Canada that are going to have a great crop. We go into northwestern Manitoba, rivers, some areas of the parkland, Dauphin, Minnedosa, and those areas. Those crops are still looking really good. And because they had more moisture and maybe not quite the same heat that the other areas had. So we're going to see. And when I went on with Clay Young, right off the bat, I told him, I said, you know what? We're going to have some crops that'll do better than what people had expected. And then we're going to have the crops in the middle, which are all over the map, some very poor, some not too bad. And then we're going to have those people right on the bottom where the crops are already withered and dried, and there's nothing that they're going to get from that particular field. Cattle producers continue to be in real dire need. We've got sales going on at the Winnipeg Livestock Exchange, also at the Ashern Auction Mart, just for producers, cattle producers. that are selling their entire herds because they have nowhere to get feed. And so we have the gamut from all over the map to here. And I've been working closely with some of the cattle producers and listening to their plights. And guess what? One farmer, one cattle producer had baled his hay, and there wasn't a lot of hay, but there was some. And so I think there was like 70 bales. Those are 1,500-pound round bales. He baled them the day before. The next morning, somebody had stolen them off the field, and that meant semi-trailers. That's such a heinous crime when guys are down and out happening to do that. So, you know what? It's all good, but except we're going to keep an eye on the markets. We're going to keep an eye on the weather. We're going to keep an eye on the harvest. Keep an eye on the livestock industry, especially the hogs and the cattle, which are in the drought situation here.
Speak about the market, of course. Prices in canola, the first time we talked on the farm report, where we're up significantly, like you said. But just in terms of some other crops that we could be seeing, or crops that we have seen rise in terms of pricing at this point.
Right now, every crop has gone up. I mean, there are prices, barley prices that are $7 and $8 a bushel. Wheat prices maybe 9, 10. And when I farmed back in the 70s, $2 was a good price for wheat. And canola is right up there. Corn is right up there. Soybeans, all the prices are up. And again, it'll be, it's a weather market. If somewhere somebody gets a good crop, it can affect the market a little bit, meaning a whole area. But there's another significant thing. I have breakfast every Saturday with a fellow by the name of Bill Elias here in Winkler, and he has relatives in Belize. They farm over in Belize, and their crops froze last week, which is unheard of. Their crops froze. And so the prices are really going, and then China comes on. I think we talked about it last week. China will come on and say, we bought all the needs we have. We don't need to buy any more soybeans. Well, when the soybeans start to shrink a little bit, then they start to get back into the market, and that supports the market price as well. So we've got an interesting, every year. I mean, this is my 51st year as a farm journalist. 10 to 15 years before that, I grew up on the farm. I farmed with my dad and brother. Every year seemed to have its challenges. Every year seemed to have its positives. But this time around, the key will be how much of that crop we can get into the bin. And then from there, we'll have to see what happens.
Talking about that farmer we spoke about, or you spoke about earlier in the show, just about how saying done farming for the year because of just how the conditions are and stuff like that. Do you feel like we're going to see more and more farmers kind of tend to that the same way that farmer is trending, or do you think that's just a one-off in that case?
Well, no, there's more. He had the wherewithal to text Clay Young and tell him about it. But invariably, what they say, if there's one person that's talking about it, there's another 10 to 15 people that aren't talking about it. So we're going to see areas. It depends. Some people will wait. Like if you've got a soybean crop that needs to mature and there's going to be a bit of moisture yet, see, they don't get harvested until September. But if there's no value in the crop, then they will wait for crop insurance to make an assessment, and then they'll do with that crop what the crop insurance agent will tell them to do. So yes, there will be more. There are more people that are basically finished their harvest, but aren't talking about it. I talked to a cattle producer up at Pansy, which is out in southeastern Manitoba near Vita, Randy Kachuk, and Randy basically told me on Saturday night that right now he thought he was in pretty good shape, but he's got about half of the feed coming off of this year. And then somebody talked to me about, hey, Harry, Doesn't every cattle producer have a year's feed on the farm? Absolutely not. It doesn't work that way. You just can't store feed, because normally they expect to feed their cattle from the pasture. The pastures are green, so they keep them on the pasture until fall, and then they start giving them the feed. But now there's no pasture. We never had any pasture. We didn't have feed from last year. So most of the cattle producers are in a position where they do not have feed stored on the farm other than maybe a month or two.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, for sure. And it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna be happening with just stuff like the harvest in this month. We'll talk about that more in next week's edition of the show. But we are running short on time here. I want to finish off with this one, Harry. Of course, Siemens says Harry Siemens farming tip of the week for farmers.
I thought about this one a bit more than usual. My farming tip this week continues to be, if there's any way we can get a crop that isn't going to yield grain on a farmer's field, but it's got enough green in it to cut for the livestock producer, my tip is I'm hoping that we can continue to work that together. The other thing is we've heard so very little from the provincial government. And so my tip to the provincial government is be a bit more sensitive to what is happening out on agriculture, because it's the backbone of our country.
Wise words as always from a very wise man, Harry Siemens, on the Farm Report this week on Rise and Shine Manitoba. I'm gonna let you go now, Harry. We're gonna be connecting again next week. So yeah, we'll be talking more agriculture next week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. I'm gonna let you go now, Harry. We're going to go to our first commercial break here in today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Stick with me. I'll be back with the next guest on today's show in just a moment.
Beauty College is a little bit unique in respect to the way we teach our program. We don't do so much structure and learning and block teaching. Everybody can move along at the pace that suits them. Everybody can move along at the pace that suits them. If they can move faster, they do so. Therefore, learning everything earlier and getting more practice in all segments of hairstyling, as opposed to just being stuck in one section for a certain period of time. So we try to accommodate all the different learning styles.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. Harry Siemens, the man on the Farm Report, joined me first on today's episode, just getting the updates on what's continuing to happen and what's been happening in agriculture in the past week. Always nice to talk to Harry on the Farm Report. We'll be having him on next week, of course, to continue talking about the stories and headlines surrounding agriculture here in Manitoba. But we're going to move away from that and get into some hockey talk. A guest that's joined me 2 times so far on Rise and Shine Manitoba, one for one initiative involving trades, and then he joined me this for a second time to talk about Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. He joins me again today to talk about the academy. It's Gordie Tumilson. Gordie, happy long weekend, August long, of course, wrapping up after today, but how's your long weekend been?
The long weekend's been great. It's been very relaxing. Hot again. Hoping for some rain. Harry, we're on your side. Big time, certainly out in Pilot Mound and around the province and the rest of Western Canada. We could use some rain and good on the farmers to hang in there.
Yeah, it's you got to feel for the farmers, and even more respect for the ones that are hanging in there. It's just been a tough year with just this crazy drought with just the hot weather. I mean, I love the hot weather, but it's definitely necessary to get rain, and we haven't gotten much of it, which is unfortunate. But let's move into some hockey. Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. Of course, you told me that you wanted to speak about some of the marketing successes and efforts that the Academy has been having. Can you dive into what those successes and efforts have been looking like?
Well, the over the 3 years and now the fourth year, I guess, that I've been there, sort of involved in the marketing program, we've really worked hard on our website. And we've got a pretty dynamic website now. It's got lots of good stuff and a big connection to ASTV and about 150 interviews and whatnot. And that comes into play here as well. We've worked hard on our social media. And in both cases, we had Dan Trudeau look after our website initially. Now Carson McConnell, who's our head coach of the boys U17 team, son, is looking after both the website and now our social media, and he's done a phenomenal job. And one really neat success that we've just I could tell you about is the fact that we have a player from U15 boys player from Taiwan coming to play for us, and that came about as a result of Facebook. The fact that we made our announcement on the U15 team back a few months ago. And a very timely announcement as it hit home, and somehow Facebook connected to the Chen family in Taipei, Taiwan, and they have sent their son along with Dad for a couple of weeks to Pilot Mound, and he's going to play hockey for our U15 team. They took a look at the website after they saw the Facebook information. They checked up on Pilot Mound, and they went to ASTV's various interviews of some of our players, and that was the final sell for Pilot Mound. They're looking for a smaller place, not a big place to play hockey for their young guy, and they found us, and so here we are. So Facebook, social media, websites, marketing, go on and on and on. We've had a big success here. There's a lot of other ones, but that's the neatest one so far.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you guys have had a chance to have many different players from many different places come in, but I don't think we've ever seen a player from Taiwan join your guys' team or one of your guys' teams. Just, knowing that you guys are able to reach out like a market like that in Taiwan, just how optimistic are you about just the future of what your guys' social media can bring in terms of potentially recruiting players and putting the program on even more notice?
Well, we've hooked up just recently with an organization called Elite Hockey out of Connecticut, and they're a pretty widely used referral group and whatnot. They're connected to all sorts of media, all the major media down in the States, certainly all sorts of underground media that are friendly underground media. So we're pleased with that in the hockey side of things. And with all of that going on, we're also signing up with a Fargo radio station to do some interviews there over the winter. So we've got lots of things going on. Starting again this year to promote our players and so both finding players, recruiting, and promoting our players into their next level. We've done a pretty good job of ensuring that every player that graduates from our program gets a chance to at least try out, in particular the boys' side of things. Not as many signings, but certainly lots of tryouts. And on the girls' side, we had 8 girls graduate this past June, and all 8 are signed to play in college hockey this year somewhere in North America. So, we continue to grow the recruitment and the placement side of our program.
Yeah, that's excellent. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the end of this season will hold in terms of just, players that are committing and players that are signing with junior hockey teams or getting tryouts, like you said. Moving into just this season, the three teams, just speak about what the makeup of these teams are looking like at this time, the U15 program as well as the female and U17 male program as well.
Well, I'm pleased to note that as of August the 1st, our U15 new team has 15 players committed out of the 20 spots. The U17 male team has 17 players committed out of the 20 spots, and the girls team has 13 players committed out of the 20 spots. And that's sort of a typical year where we're excited about all three teams being full when we get started. We've got COVID has continued to put question marks in some people's minds, and so the commitment to come to pilot to go to any of the traveling academy teams anywhere has been a bit tougher this year. Our league members in the CSSHL, etc., are all having different difficult times in signing players just because they're not sure we're not going to have another season like last year, which we didn't have one. So we're counting on COVID taking a break and everybody getting vaccinated, herd immunity, et cetera, and that we can have a good hockey season and fill our rosters up in the next month.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Gordie, I'm going to lose it if COVID takes away another season from these kids, not just for them, but for us at ASTV, because we want as much stuff to cover as possible. But I feel like we should be seeing hockey back in the full swing of things, as well as many other sports as well, come when things start to really ramp up. But just, talking about the goalies, you said that you guys got a fully signed goalie roster. Is that for all three teams at this point?
Yeah, we've got commitments from 7 goalies. We have 3 goalies on our U17 boys team. One is an AP goalie that we use in a call-up scenario. So, but the other teams have got 2 goalies each. So we're committed with 7 goalies for the 3 teams. We've got goalies from everywhere. It's great. We got a boy from Lethbridge. We've got a goalie from Winnipeg, a goalie from Chicago, a goalie from Ottawa, and a goalie from Peterborough, and so we've got goalies coming from everywhere. So that's really neat. I mean, again, there's your social media and all the work we do with ASTV and hockey TV. People are noticing who we are, what we are, and I go back to prior to last year, we've had a successful goalie program. I'm proud of that. 3 of our 4 goalies in the previous 2 years were all-stars. And so, we've got a successful goalie program, and it's recognized by the league and other places. And we've placed all of our goalies with teams, or they're getting last chance tryouts in junior hockey. So yeah, we're feeling really good about our goalies this year.
Yeah, and I bet you are, especially since you are the goalie coach. We'll talk more about just your thoughts later on in the month about just the new up-and-coming goalies into this program. But I'll finish off with this one, just with hockey season going to be getting into the swing of things before we know it. What are going to be the upcoming events for the teams this month for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, if there is any?
Well, the opening is the long weekend. Typically, it's a long weekend in September, but just before school, and all the players will be invited along with their parents and whoever's looking after them to come in. We spend half a day with each team. They get a full orientation. They get up into the dressing rooms. They get their equipment all settled. They get into the dormitories. We have lunch together. We have a big long meeting. We set some of the guidelines and the rules for the season. So it's a big, long weekend for the program. All of our players are in. They get to meet one another. They get on the ice a little bit to try out their skates and equipment, if some of it's new, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got that, and of course school starts, and that's always big for the kids. So it's a big long weekend coming up for our players.
I'll finish off with this one. Of course, none of you guys still got some players that you guys are going to bring in for in terms of commitments here to finalize some of the rosters. Just what point do you guys got to have your guys' rosters all fully finalized?
Well, not until the season starts. I mean, in fact, even if the season gets started and we don't have it done, we can, if we have spaces, we can fill with players later on. So that's happened on occasion, I think, in the past. We'd like to go in with 20 people, starting us off, but sometimes that doesn't happen. We think it will, and we think it'll all be done. But if we have a spot or two open, that's okay. The players don't mind; they get a little more ice time, and it's a little less crowded for practice time. But as long as we've got two goalies, I think everybody's happy. As long as we got two goalies, one on each end, so the guys can shoot pucks at them. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, no doubt about that. Makes working on stuff a lot easier when you're able to have two goaltenders instead of one. So that's definitely good. But yeah, always getting more ice time due to shorter roster numbers is always nice too. But yeah, Gordie, we'll continue talking about Pilot Mound throughout this month and in the upcoming months when the season gets into the full swing of things, even before the season as well. Always great talking to you. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Thanks for coming on today.
We appreciate it, Graeme. Thank you.
Awesome. Gordie Tumilson, goalie coach for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, joining the show now. We're going to let Gordie go now. We're going to go to another commercial break in today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. When we come back, we're going to finish off with, you already know what the segment is, Graham's Opinion. Coming up next on Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. I was joined by Gordie Tumilson, goalie coach for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, just talking about the makeup of the team so far this year for the Academy. Their fully signed goalie rosters so far, the upcoming events for the teams, as well as just the marketing successes and efforts they've had as they have brought in a player from Taiwan to play on their U15 team, which is pretty cool, as I do say so myself. That's amazing, just being able to branch out to a market like that and get a player like that into a place like small town Manitoba where Pilot Mound Hockey Academy is. But yeah, we're going to move away from that now and do another edition of Graham's Opinion. We got only two topics on today's episode, and we'll start off with this one. How filthy the Devils will be next season. I put something out on my personal Instagram page just saying for people to suggest what they'd like to see on Rise and Shine Manitoba. If you guys would like us to start doing that on our ASTV social media pages, be sure to comment down below on our Facebook stream, as that is, or on our Twitter as well, as those are the places where you can comment. Can't comment on our YouTube due to the comments being turned off, as our videos are made for kids under the settings. But yeah, this came from my buddy Marty Firth. He's a huge Devils fan, so let's entertain this question: how filthy the Devils will be next season. Well, looking at what they did last season, they went 19-30-7. They didn't fare so well. Last season, they had 145 goals for, which was 26th in the whole league, and 195 goals against, which was 28th most allowed in the league. Just looking at this team, their cap space, they're going to have a lot of it heading into next season. At this point, $21.2 million in cap space available for this team. So this is a team that is going to be able to probably continue adding free agents with big signings. It's going to be interesting to see what type of money Jack Hughes is going to get, depending on what he's able to produce in the upcoming year. But yeah, just looking at this team's offense, looking at daily line combos, what they had, man, I'm going to try not to butcher these names, but Kuakkinen, Hughes, and Sharangovich on that first line, and then Zaka, Heischer, and Bratt on that second line, Wood, McLeod, and Johnson on that third line they have, and then they have Foote, Boquist, and Studnik on that fourth line. Of course, for this offense, it's a young group. These are some young guys. Hughes going into his third season as a pro. He's sure still young in his career. That top line is young in general, and this forward group is young in general. And it's going to be interesting to see what's going to be happening with Jack Hughes this year. Of course, the first overall pick from the 2019 NHL entry draft, put up 21 points in 61 games in year one, increased in stats in terms of points in that second season with 31 points in 56 games. And yeah, just looking at the defense, this is a defense that is significantly improved, adding Ryan Graves in a trade earlier this offseason, signing Dougie Hamilton. We'll get into that signing in just a bit here on Graham's opinion, but they got two young studs on defense, and Ty Smith and Damon Severson, and then I'm not sure how to pronounce this guy's name. I'm not sure who's going to be playing with Subban, but Subban is going to be playing on that third pairing as well. So just looking at this team, looking at what they were able to do with their decor. First off, this offseason, they added a guy like Dougie Hamilton, who is an elite offensive defenseman. You add a guy like Ryan Graves, who adds size, and a defensive defenseman who can also produce offensively, as he's shown throughout his career, putting up something like 40 points in his 2019-2020 season. And then, a guy like Ty Smith, who had a solid rookie season, and Severson, who is considered their best defenseman, since he's come to this team. And you got Subban, who's making a lot of money, a guy who's looked like he's declined quite a bit, but he's gonna have a lot to prove for himself in a contract year. So looking at these teams' goaltenders as well, Mackenzie Blackwood, they signed Jonathan Bernier as well. Of course, Mackenzie Blackwood is a guy that's shown some potential throughout his career. It's just going to be interesting to see if he can stay healthy. I believe he missed some time last season. I'm not too sure if it was him or Wedgwood, but Mackenzie Blackwood has showed some solid stats throughout his career, even though he had a 9.02 save percentage last season. it's going to be interesting to see how much he's going to improve with this decor that they have, this new and improved decor that they've improved. And then a guy like Jonathan Bernier, who I think could be a solid backup. So looking at this team, they added Dougie Hamilton in free agency, 7-year contract, $9 million annual is what he's going to be making a year. You get Bernier's 2 years, $4.1 million, which isn't a great price, but you got to overpay guys in free agency for them to come to your teams. And then you traded for Graves, and you also drafted Luke Hughes, who's going to be one of the future pieces on this decor. Final verdict, in my opinion, after improving this defense in the offseason with the new additions, it's going to come down to if forwards like Hughes and Hischier can elevate their game and lead this offense. This is a team that, even though they've added nicely to their decor, they still got a lot to prove up front with that young offensive core. It's going to be interesting to see with what Hughes and Hischier will be able to do this season. Of course, I feel like this is the year that Hughes is going to need to break out and, prove that he is that guy that should have went number 1 overall. For the people calling him a bust, you're absolutely crazy, but for sure it's going to be interesting to see what type of season he's going to have and if he's going to be able to break out and elevate his game and truly become that number 1 overall pick that New Jersey is picked him as and who they're banking on him being. It's going to be interesting to see how their young guys are going to do up front. We know the defense is going to be significantly improved with adding a guy like Dougie Hamilton, who I believe is a top 5 defenseman in the league right now, adding a guy like Ryan Graves. Ty Smith going into his second season should have a solid season again, as well as Severson. I think he'll continue to improve in his game just with him being such a big body as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how a guy like PK Subban does. And I think another question mark is, can this goaltending for this team step up as well? I see this team in the Metro. It's so tough because you got teams like Pittsburgh, Carolina, the New York Islanders, the New York Rangers, who I think are going to be a lot better. You still got the Washington Capitals there, who are a very experienced team. And at this point, it's going to be interesting to see what the Devils are going to be able to do. I think that they're going to show a lot of improvements this season. Could be a borderline playoff team, but at this point, I'm not sure. I'm going, either they miss out on the playoffs or they either get a wild card spot. But crazier things have happened in the past. This is a team that's set up very nicely to do well in the future with just their young pieces. This is going to be a good year for experience for this team. And if they're able to make it to the playoffs, I think that's going to speed up the process of things of what this team can become, because playoff experience is so huge in the NHL, in my opinion. But that's it for the New Jersey Devils side of things. Should be interesting to see, like I said, how they do. But let's move into NHL Free Agency, the review. We're going to talk about 3 moves that happened and 3 other moves that we talked about last week. Starting off with those, Dougie Hamilton to New Jersey for 7 years, $63 million is going to be making $9 million annually. I predicted the Hurricanes, and looking back at this, I said that Hamilton, I thought he could be making upwards of $9.5 million. Them getting him at $9 million, $500K less than Jones, I think, is a great price. I had him going for upwards of $9.5 million because I compared it to the Seth Jones contract that he signed, right? But, Hamilton is in the same class in terms of money as a guy like Cale Makar, even though I do think Cale Makar did take a pay cut just for them to be able to re-sign a guy like their captain Landeskog. But in terms of Hamilton going to New Jersey, people saying that this contract is an overpay, you're absolutely out of your mind. This is a guy that has been a significant piece of the Hurricanes decor in the past 3 seasons that he's been there. This is a guy that's an elite offensive defenseman. And yes, I did call him elite defensively last week in the show. And I want to clarify that when I meant elite defensively, I know that this guy struggles a bit in his defensive zone. And at times, he looks average at best in the D zone. But this guy has improved his all-around game in the defensive zone as well. He's a guy that's using his stick a lot more to, the best of his abilities to, poke check pucks. He's been more physical, even though people do say that he's soft. He's a guy that's been able to be more physical in his D zone throughout his time in Carolina. And this is a guy, when I was talking about elite defensively, I meant in terms of possessing the puck and transitioning as well out of the zone. And this is a guy that possesses the puck at such a high level, and he makes the plays around him, like the guys that he's played with, like Slavin and other guys too. And there's a misconception about, Slavin makes him a better defense. If you actually look at the stats, his numbers without Slavin are better. So that's better than when, with Slavin without him. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But, just some misconceptions around Dougie Hamilton. This is a great signing for the New Jersey Devils, in my opinion, even though people might say it's an overpay. You have to overpay to get a guy like that anyways. They paid for him significantly more than Carolina offered him money for. And, I get it for Carolina. You got some forwards you got to sign coming up, and you still got a solid decor. It's just, I feel like this is going to be a loss for them. And I think that Hamilton going to New Jersey, being paired up with a guy like Ryan Graves, who's known for being a defensive defenseman who also can produce offense, is going to be huge for him. I don't see him taking a step back here in New Jersey. Maybe down the line he's going to start digressing, but for now, I think this is a great contract and a great price that they sign him for. Moving on to Gabriel Landeskog, got this one right. I thought that he would re-sign with Colorado just after reading what Cale Makar had to say, just knowing that he said that the team wanted guys like Landeskog and Grubauer back, even though they didn't end up re-signing Grubauer. You get a guy like Landeskog back, a guy that is been your team captain and is probably going to continue to be your team captain, even though I think that McKinnon, should transition into being that captain. Just, I think he deserves it, but that's nothing to take away from the leadership of Gabriel Landeskog. But this is a guy who's fit in very nicely on that first line, signs for $7 million for 8 seasons. People complaining about the price, that contract might not look the best down the line, but you're going to have to overpay to have guys here. And I don't think that even wasn't overpaid at this point. I think that this guy is worth $7 million at this point. He's proven it, even though he has played on a line with McKinnon and Rantanen. That's definitely made him a better player. But I mean, for the production he's put up, I think that $7 million was a fair price. This is a guy that has been good offensively. He's a guy that has some physicality to his game, and he's also good defensively as well. And he's also been your captain. You got him for a lot cheaper than what he would have gotten on the open market. $7 million a year for 8 seasons. The term might be a little long, but honestly, for a long-term deal, that's the money they were going to have to sign him at. So yeah, my prediction was to re-sign. Nailed that prediction. And let's move on to Ryan Suter signing to the Dallas Stars for 4 years, $14.6 million, and AAV of 3.6 million. You'll be making 3.6 million a year. My prediction was Boston, just because Boston losing a guy like Lazon to the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. Thought they might target a guy like Suter, but then his asking price came out. I did value Suter way higher than I did. I just took a guess, honestly. 4.5 to 5 million is what I thought he would sign for with teams, but his asking price was real to be like 3.5 million to that 4 million range. I'm pretty sure it was revealed like that, but he ends up making $3.6 million for 4 seasons, signs with the Dallas Stars, a team that lost Jamie Oleksiak, so they fill a need with Suter playing in that top 4 along with Miro Heiskanen. You'd like to think that'd be the thing. A guy that adds veteran presence to a team that was in the Stanley Cup just last season. Talking about when they made it to the Cup against the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a team that adds a veteran to a team, a player that, even though we had a really off year for what he's produced in the past, it might be the start of his decline. Giving him a shot, a new situation in Dallas could be nice, and him playing with Miro Heiskanen could be very good for him. Boston, electing to go with guys like Mike Riley, Derek Forbort, Foligno, and Eric Holla. Definitely, I don't think they would have been able to afford Suter, especially with the cap the space they got right now. But Suter, you add a defenseman that'll probably still be able to play in your top 4, defenseman that has showed that he can put up offense and long minutes as well throughout his career. Even though he is a bit older, I think the switch of scenery could be good for him, and he could be in for not an amazing season, but a better season than he did have last season, especially playing with Miro Heiskanen, but we shall see. Other moves that were made, the moves that we didn't talk about, these guys. Zach Hyman signing with the Edmonton Oilers for $5.5 million annually, AAV, for 7 years. This is a guy, he can work. He uses his size well in the corners. He's a speedy winger, and he's good puck protection forward who can maintain good puck control. This is a guy that, isn't going to impact the game as much defensively as he does offensively. This is a guy that doesn't put up stupendous numbers, but him being on a line with McDavid, you'd like to think that's going to be the case. On that top line, here's a guy that's going to be able to go to work in the corners. He's a guy that's going to be able to possess the puck, and he's a guy that's going to add speed to a line with, you add that with McDavid, you add that with Hyman's size and just his ability to go to work in the corners. This could be a good fit for Hyman in Edmonton, being able to be that option on the wing for Connor McDavid and adding more offense to this team, a team whose offense got exposed for their lack of depth when guys like McDavid and Draisaitl weren't able to put up the insane numbers like they usually were able to in the playoffs. I'm not going to speak about the money in these signings because honestly, I'm just not going to have an opinion on that. But you get this guy for 7 years, $5.5 million annually with that's probably the price you had to pay for him. That is the price that you had to pay for him to get him in free agency. And it should be interesting to see how he does with Connor McDavid in this Edmonton Oilers squad. Moving on to Philip Deneau, signing for 6 years, $5.5 million a year with the Los Angeles Kings. This is a move for the Kings. They get an elite defensive centerman, a guy that is not the best offensively, but still can put up stats within the 40 and 50 ranges, as he's proven without in his career. And he's a centerman who fills a need, even though Quinn Byfield is going to be the future of this team at center. Adding a guy like Dano behind a guy like Anze Kopitar is I feel like they needed one more centerman, and Dano was that guy. He's a guy that is going to help his line mates out in terms of just him, being that responsible defensive centerman. It could open up some doors for, people around him to put up better numbers offensively just because they have such a reliable piece in their forward core with defensive centerman like Dano. Getting him for 6 years, it's going to be huge, I think, to, for as long as Kopi is going to be there, and for a guy like Dano to be there, for a guy like Byfield to have some time to soak and play behind those guys in the lineup. You could even see Byfield maybe becoming the second line center at some point this season, depending on what type of season he's going to have. That is yet to be seen. I'm not saying he's going to be playing in the top 6, but that's where his ceiling is at, being a top 6 centerman, right? But you got a guy like Philip Danault, who has proven he's elite defensively, can put up offensive numbers like in 40, 50-point ranges at points. And yeah, just fills a need at center on that team that I feel is much needed at this point with, outside of Kopitar, who do they really have except for Byfield, who really hasn't gotten many NHL reps at this point. Moving into Philip Grubauer, Seattle gets a Vezina finalist. He goes to Seattle, 6 years, $5.9 million annually. This move at first got declined, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure why, but it violated some rules. But just talking about this guy, Philip Grubauer, he's coming off a career year where he ends up being a finalist for the Vezina. And Seattle, you get an established starter and more, you add more depth to a goaltending room with, the types of goaltenders that they have. Of course, they traded Vanasek back to Washington after that signing was made. And, with the decor that Seattle has, strongest part of their team besides their goaltending, this is a good signing for them because even though this decor, in my opinion, is nowhere near the type of decor he had in Colorado, this is still a solid decor. This is a goaltender that has proven he can be a good goalie, if not a great goalie in this league, just by the season he had last year. And yeah, getting a Vezina finalist, a guy with playoff experience somewhat, is going to be, I think, huge for this team. And I think he's going to be a good player to, have in there, knowing Dreger has been able to put up solid stats up until this point in his career, but he's never had the chance to be that number one guy. Maybe Seattle wasn't feeling comfortable with him being that number one guy flat out, with just the goaltending depth that this team has, not as much experience as you would have had without adding Grubauer. And they add Grubauer, and a guy that's a Vezina finalist coming off a career year, and an established starter in this league that could put up solid numbers. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know I wasn't going to speak about prices. Not too sure I like the price range long term, but of course, like in the end, you're going to have to overpay for players in this league and free agency if you're going to want to get them. That's just the way the game is played. But yeah, that's going to do it for Graeme's opinion here on Rise and Shine Manitoba. If you enjoyed this part of Rise and Shine Manitoba on Graeme's opinion, be sure to leave it a like or a reaction on whatever platform you're watching it on. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that part of the show. And this is going to do it for Rise and Shine Manitoba for this August 2nd morning here in 2021, I should say. Oh geez, it's early in the morning. I can't seem to remember my dates, but August 2nd, 2021, this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba was it was great getting to talk to Harry Siemens on this Monday morning, as well as Gordie Tumilson, goalie coach for Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. I want to thank both Harry and Gordie for coming on the show this morning and being the guests on Rise and Shine Manitoba. I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in, as well as our sponsors of Rise and Shine Manitoba today. I want to thank them for sponsoring today's episode. I'll be back on the network for an all-new edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba next Monday at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. You can catch that episode on our Facebook at ASTV Productions. You can also watch it on our Twitter at Amateur Sports TV, or you can simply check it out on our website at astvproductions.com if you want to do that as well. But yeah, until next Monday, folks, I've been your host of Rise and Shine Manitoba, Graeme Forsyth, signing off now until we see you next Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your long weekend. Enjoy your day off here on Monday. Stay safe out there. Have a wonderful week and weekend as well. We'll see you next Monday. Until then, peace out.